Good afternoon. A couple minutes late. It's never a good sign. It's always a pleasure to have our delegation with us to discuss the wish list for the upcoming session in Annapolis. And a little late this year, but because of the election year, we decided to make sure that we knew who the players were going to be before we actually did this, which makes sense, and then we'll roll on. So for the thousands of viewing audience folks, I'd like to go around the room and introduce ourselves again so that everybody knows who everybody is. And we've got a couple new faces up here too, although I know everybody knows everybody, but let's just roll. So I'm going to go this way. I'm District 1 Commissioner Steve Wance.
I am Commissioner Ed Rothstein, District 5, Eldersburg, Sykesville.
District 3 Commissioner Dennis Frazier.
I'm Mike Fowler, the Legislative Liaison for the Commissioners.
Warren Miller, Delegate, District 9A.
Roberta Linden, County Administrator.
Haven Shoemaker, Delegate District 5. Justin Reedy, Senator District 5.
Susan Krebs, Delegate District 5. And Delegate Kittleman is coming District 9.
Yep. Yell from the back, Trent.
Trent Kittleman, District 9A.
Eric Boucher, Commissioner, District 4.
Oh, I'm Meg Butler. I'm Chief of Staff for Senator Reedy.
Nick Weaver, Commissioner, District 2.
Okay, thank you all again very much. We're going to go down the list here and give you the wish list, kind of suited for this time of year, because several of these you can put a bow around and put under the tree, right? And then off we go in that quaint little village starting in January. First of all, before we roll down, I want to say congratulations to those of you that were reelected, and certainly those of you that are new to our board. And we very much look forward to the working relationship as we move forward with what is probably going to be a very interesting legislative session. So before we roll down through here, Justin, do you want to say anything about what to anticipate briefly in January for this group?
Well, we obviously, I think we all probably agree one of the big issues we'll see is the Kirwan Commission and the price tag and the mandates associated with it are gonna dominate the discussion quite a bit, I think. We're also gonna see, we could see a push for certain types of legislation like $15 minimum wage and some of the other more sort of progressive left type economic policies. So we'll be watching that pretty closely, and there's also going to be on something that may get a lot of news is sports gaming is another issue that may be at the forefront. Maryland, of course, has to put that on the ballot if we want to have sports gambling on sports in the state. There's a few things. I think the Kerwin Commission from the fiscal side is going to be the big driver of our discussion, at least on the sort of the 10,000-foot level as we start out the session. But every session, there's always something that becomes a big issue that you didn't necessarily expect. So
Exactly.
we'll have to stay on our toes as well.
How many new senators, Justin?
We have 16 new senators.
Okay.
So, and I actually don't know. Maybe Delegate Shoemaker comment in the House, but I think there's quite a few new delegates too.
Right,
So
right. So it's going to be a,
40.
is that what it is?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
So anything to add, Haven?
Well, I mean, I think that his assessment's pretty accurate. I mean, the Kerwin Commission stuff, we'll see a lot of that in our committee. The one that Delegate Rose and I serve on, Ways and Means, because we deal with education policy a lot. I haven't seen any information regarding funding and what, if any, tweaks are going to be made to the funding formula to help counties like ours, you know, that have had declining enrollment and suffered from the wealth formula that was put in place back in 2002 under Thornton. So, I mean, that's kind of up in the air right now, but we're keeping an eye on that. There are some other issues. I mean, I'm sure they're going to trot out health insurance mandate and probably Mary Jane legalization and, you know, a host of other things. We'll see all that
Okay.
in this next 90 days. God help us.
Susan, anything to add? First, and I want to applaud you because I know all of you work hard, but I know, Susan, you've been working hard lately on the Next Gen 911 legislation and everything that's associated with that. That's going to be a challenge for not only you folks, but all of us on the local level across the state. So I know you've done a ton of work on that, so I applaud you for that.
And thank you for working with me on that. I just want to mention that a lot of these issues do affect the counties. Next Gen 911 affects the counties. Kerwin affects the county, so remember that. It's going to be a price tag for counties as well. $15 minimum wage. All these things affect you. So to the extent that you can let us know how it affects you, it affects our school system. If we go to $15 minimum wage, it affects healthcare. So any kind of feedback we can get as we go through this, through the 90 days on how these things affect, and you do it through MACO, which is really good. They have a voice at the table, but it's also good for you to let us know so we can have some firsthand knowledge of how some of this stuff affects the counties.
Absolutely.
And we're always very sensitive to that, all of us.
Yep. Trent?
You're right, Susan works harder than anybody I know in the House, so I appreciate it. I think everything that they said, I will be on appropriations this year, so that will be a new committee for me. And I don't think there are a lot of specific bills that come to or out of it, but we obviously know where the money is and where it goes. And I agree that the Kerwin Commission is the biggest thing looming over us. And it's unfortunate that we're going to spend more money to get less. But
Yeah, I think we're all on the same page there, same sheet of music. Finally, Warren.
So the committee I serve on, for years, we've bottled up a number of bad ideas, as has the Senate Finance Committee. And I think with the changes in committee assignments, membership, we're going to see a drastic uptick in things that are going to make it to the governor's desk this year. So it's more than just the $15 minimum wage. There's 6 or 8 really, really bad business bills out there. There are some other things that are going to be very hard to contain. and it's a consequence of the election, so we just have to deal with it.
Okay. So finally, just to summarize all of that and to put a face to the name, and you all know this gentleman, but I will say that we've got the best boots on the ground guy down there, bar none. So Mike's going to be our boots on the ground as he was last year, and Mike Fowler has done an excellent job, and we anticipate the same out of him, if not better. I'm winking over here, Mike.
Gotta step it
See
up.
that?
No
See me
question.
winking?
He's boots on the ground, he's a hostage negotiator sometimes.
Yeah, yeah.
He's good.
Well, it was good to find somebody that knew what doors to open and what hallways to walk down.
Yeah,
That's
very
the
good.
biggest challenge we had, to find somebody like that. And, man, we were lucky to be able to do that,
And
so,
it's all changed, every door has changed.
Yeah.
We're all moving offices.
Yeah.
Maybe
Are you?
more.
I'm not.
Same hallway.
Okay, good,
They
good.
seem to move you guys around a little.
No, I can
You
say,
are.
I moved down a floor, but I think we can all say, it was very helpful having Mike. Mike did a great job. He sure did. It's not just about the bills that you guys may want, or
Right.
that we're working on with you, it's even knowing what's going on with other bills and how it affects the county, and so we were able to, like I said, some hostage negotiations at times to say, well, we want our bill out, we need this amendment, we did a lot of good work together, so we're looking forward to doing that again.
okay, very good. All right, well, with that said, we're going to go scooting right down the list here, and you can follow along in your binders that we've provided for you guys, that you'll be carrying with you every single day in Annapolis, right?
Right.
Thank you very much. First of all is the annual bond bill, and I don't know that we really need to get into that. That's something that we do every year. You folks are obviously all familiar with that. Same as always, and
Amount?
amount,
Oh, that'll come to you.
that'll come to you. We don't know that yet.
You know,
Right,
That's the list of projects.
yeah.
There's a different process
Yeah, I
this
was
year
telling Mike
as
this.
well.
Why
so-
not?
Okay, well, we have some questions about that, so we could talk about that.
You know what, I'm gonna forward
No,
you the email.
Mike
Yeah,
did
I-
already?
Okay.
But, and to Ted, but, anyway, we have some
Okay.
questions, so we'll just talk to you.
Okay,
I don't think it's gonna substantially change this type of bill. I
No,
think
not this
that's-
kind of bond.
That's for
Okay.
legislative bonds. So
Oh,
I think, I think,
okay.
I think we'll be
Yeah,
okay.
that's what we
okay.
want.
Yeah, that's sort of I think that's what we had received, so, okay.
I think
This
we'll
is
be
your
okay.
county bond.
Right,
yeah.
Something else.
It gives
Okay.
us the authorization to issue bonds. You just-
Okay.
Yep, should be fine.
And by the way, I might point at, what's-his-face back there every now and then, our county attorney, Tim Burke, did a lot of work on this as well. I owed him that, so, but I may get him to stand up and yell a little bit
We
here,
always
too.
know who does the work.
Okay, well,
Right, Tim?
So see, I called him that, and then I gave him kudos, so, All right, number 2 is the repeal of the prohibition of the operation of gaming events, including raffles after 1 a.m. on Sunday. Haven, you and I kind of worked on this. We kind of tag teamed this one last year, and we didn't quite get it to where it needed to go, and that was kind of as a result of us kind of dropping the ball a little bit on the understanding of what we were trying to do. So again, just to give you the layman's terms here, and I think I referenced this last year, but I think it got missed. We've got several fire companies that are doing the lottery calendars. So they pay based on what the state lottery number is that day. They want to pay on Sunday, but they can't, because we can't pay on Sunday here in Carroll. So they found ways around that. They actually, I think, are paying double on Monday or something, but it's sort of ridiculous for us to have that kind of language when the state's paying on Sunday.
So this is just for Carroll County?
Correct.
And other counties already do it?
I would suspect that most of them do, yes. And,
I'm not sure.
well, I don't know, so,
There's a story in Southern Maryland, has nothing to do with you guys,
okay,
but there were problems, and that's part of why this went to a set time for a lot of the counties. Because there were gambling events going to like 4 in the morning, and there was some racket involved in some of the charitable organizations. They were front groups for others.
yeah,
So
okay,
that's where some of this came from.
Okay.
And that's-
Time, right.
Yeah, and so that's what I think created some of these laws,
okay.
but we're not in Southern Maryland, so.
Right, yeah. And again, most of these things that are being done, and they're the ones that come to my mind, obviously, for me, is the volunteer fire companies. I think there's at least 2 or 3 of them that are doing that now. And they just merely want the opportunity to be able to pay out on the day
Well,
that
this
they.
also allows Sunday bingo, would it not?
Correct.
Because I think the fire departments were asking for that a few years ago.
Yep, that's part of this as well, so.
Anything, so.
Yep, just the opportunity for these nonprofits to be able to function on a Sunday.
We want
Time-
people to be able to tithe on the
Times they are
winnings on
changing,
Sundays, too.
right, yeah, so we're gonna, I'll be back, so, we need to explain, yeah, well,
Yeah.
no
that's
pun,
fine.
no pun intended.
Yeah, yeah.
But, yeah, to make sure that we try to get this language through, so, so that's enough on that. Any questions on that? By the way, on that subject, whatever happened to the nickel or quarter bingo or something that
Penny bingo.
the penny bingo or,
Ask
Past 15
President
years
Miller.
ago.
okay. Is that, it just went,
You can do it in the senior center.
Yeah, at the senior center, but not in.
But
like,
nowhere
the
else.
Common areas of independent living facilities that we try to get through.
We should try to
Remember
do that, because that's a problem.
Senator Miller bottled that up.
There was, for some reason, and I don't know with the change of leadership in the committees and all that, there was some issue, and I think it was the Senate president, but also the committee chair at the time, there were some issues with it, getting it out of the Senate. It's like a lot of things within, the way our hodgepodge of gaming laws work, sort of what Warren was talking about, but it got hung up, so we're gonna see, we definitely wanna try to do that again, see if we can't get a little more common sense there on that, but.
Can we put all
okay,
one-
so you are gonna attempt to do that again? Okay,
Yeah.
We could all put it in one piece of legislation, because it really is a problem at some of our
Yeah.
senior facilities, because they have bingo in their community center in
Yeah,
that room, and we have to
right.
run it through the Lions Club, and it's sort of stupid.
It's sort of funny, what you'll see, and I know some of you have followed this for a long time, is we'll get one thing that we wanna do. We've actually been able to get a lot of things through in the last few years that we wanted, but there'll be something where, okay, the House of Delegates Committee doesn't like this bill, the Senate doesn't like this bill, and you get that, and you have to, sometimes it takes a couple of years to work through the personalities or the objections, and now we have all these new people, so we'll see if that may help shake some things loose.
okay. All right, yeah, I happened to, well, I actually got an email from that young lady in Hampstead about something else, and she reminded me that she believes she's given up on the bingo, and so I thought, okay, well, I'll poke you all to maybe do it again.
Well, first of all,
I don't know if
people's
you've had any.
private-
Yes, that's for the
Yeah.
senior housing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's for people's private community areas and
Right.
where they live, and they,
Right. Okay. Okay.
Passed the House unanimously, I'll tell you. Not to throw you under the bus, Senator.
well, that's good, at least we're half.
I never even got to vote for it, I said, get out of committee.
Okay. All right, very good. Next on the list, this is Commissioner Frazier. As you giggle about this one, so I'll let you take the.
All this does is enabling legislation so that a board of commissioners in the future, if they wanted to, could prohibit the use and/or distribution of plastic bags for retail establishments, restaurants, or grocery stores. So it's just enabling legislation for Carroll County, for the board of commissioners that want to do that in the future. I honestly don't know how you can look around and see what's going on in the world today, and if you watch the 60 Minutes thing that was aired this past Sunday, how you couldn't give us the power to do this if this board, not this board, because I already know the sentence of this board, but if a future board of commissioners wanted to do that, they would have the right to do it.
So your board is not asking for this, right?
No, just I am.
Okay. Any?
I just have a question, I just noticed on the one before this, it has position of the Board of Commissioners, support opposed, support with amendments. Did you take positions on any of these?
Yes.
Yeah.
So on that one, the first one we just did, I assume,
On the.
On the
it's
plastic
not marked
bags.
off, and so
No,
should we
no,
put?
no, you're talking about the
The
gaming.
gaming bill.
That was
Okay,
unanimous,
'cause it says
yes.
position of the Board of Commissioners, so you all
Correct.
support.
Correct.
And what about this one?
And this one?
This is just me.
This is just one commissioner.
So
But there
did you
hasn't
vote?
been a vote on it?
No.
No.
Well, I didn't bring it to the vote, I just talked about it.
No vote.
What is this, doesn't any local bill have to be accompanied with a letter from?
We appreciate if they go on it before they bring it to us, but we don't always get that.
What I'm asking is, in order for this to even be accepted, does there have to be a vote of the commissioners, or a letter from the commissioners supporting.
No.
There doesn't have to be that, but we could decide to enable something for them to do whether they wanted to or not in the form of government. And for Carroll, because I know Howard's different, but obviously we've tried not to, of course, do that. Yeah, we typically, we like to, if it's a local bill that you're asking for, we want to.
Right.
I understand with the statewide bills, it's a little different. It's more of a request for us to.
Well, this might be a little bit different too, because we're just asking for enabling, or Commissioner Frazier's asking for enabling. So we're not really
You're not asking for it, he is, right?
correct.
Well, we have to just vote and say you all asking or not asking. Because at the end of the day, it's sort of controversial, so if you want to put your stamp on it and you want to ask us officially for it for a Carroll County bill,
Okay.
do it. If not, it's not really
Okay.
officially.
And I gotta tell you, I don't wanna be in the business of telling folks they can't use styrofoam or plastic straws.
That's why I didn't put those two
Or
in there
tell
this
them
year.
what kind of bags they can use for that matter. I mean,
Well, I'll have to say,
I have a
yeah,
philosophical problem with that.
I can understand that, but you have to look around and see what's happening in the world today and hopefully open your eyes a little bit, because we need to do stuff like this.
So,
Well-
just to interject something I saw, we've had this bill at the state level for a couple of years. Montgomery has a nickel a bag tax. They enacted years ago as a local bill. We've had a statewide bill that's failed at least 3 years. I've been on one of the two committees that considered it in the House. Last year, there was a lot of concern raised by a similar article about plastic straws. And I noticed after that restaurants and bars voluntarily, when they brought drinks, wouldn't bring you a plastic straw.
Some
And-
signed on to that, yes.
Quite a few, and you almost get in a fight with the server if you wanted a plastic straw,
Yeah,
or
'cause
paper straw or
those
whatever.
Paper straws taste terrible.
So,
had one at once,
I guess my only thing is,
They
that's
flavored it. No.
Awful.
a different model where I wish we could encourage business owners as a government entity to take this upon themselves to either offer paper or offer alternative bags, things like that.
I mean,
Whereas when we do this mandate thing, it never stops.
Right.
It's
Which
this
is some of the
one thing.
conversation, quite frankly, Warren, that we had as a board. So that's why.
I mean, we went with straw this summer for Carroll County this past summer. It's over, and all the restaurants straws are back out there, and that's up to them. But, I mean, we're trying the other approaches with education and everything else. I personally feel it's time to tip the scales in the other direction. That's my opinion.
And listen, I appreciate your concern. I question, why we pick on a straw or pick on a bag. I don't know if any of
It's
you
one
guys
step at
do
a
any
time.
online shopping, but the amount of waste in a box that is delivered to your home with plastic in it, to me, is like 100 straws. So I think, we gotta really, look at this thing and say, okay, I just got a box delivered yesterday with something this big and it had so much plastic in it. And I said to my husband, this really was a waste. I could have gone to the store and saved all of this waste. So,
Well, I did.
I mean, I think you have to put some of this stuff in perspective.
Right.
But anyway.
And then the
I'm
local
sorry.
chamber of commerce would say, buy local, you don't have to worry about that.
I'm sorry, Senator Reed. Was that?
That's a styrofoam. He's a man after my own heart.
I'm really in trouble, because I didn't have Chick-fil-A,
Yeah,
so I'm
okay,
really making a lot of
okay.
little
Yeah. Okay, so that's the stance on that, and I don't think we need to
No, we can
debate
live
that any
Well,
longer.
incentivizing it is, we could go down that road later, yeah.
Okay. I'd like to recognize the fact that we have Senator Hester that has joined us now. We did a little brief introduction prior to you getting here, so I'll afford the opportunity for you to be able to do that.
Thank you so much, and apologies for being late. Being a senator of 2 counties is rapidly putting miles on my car. My name is Katie Fry-Hester. I'm the senator for District 9, which includes Howard County and Southern Carroll County, and I'm very pleased to be here and look forward to working with you all. Congratulations.
And same to you. Congratulations to you.
Thank you.
Okay. Now we've got a variety of opioid or drug legislative concepts. And I believe Commissioner Frazier,
Right,
you've
next
got the
one,
lead on this as
you have
well.
detention of those individuals, crossing it off. Went and talked to the senior advisory.
Senior Opioid Policy
Right,
Group.
Group yesterday. They suggested not going forward with this one. That's fine with me. The one after that, mandatory counseling for patients prescribed maintenance drugs for drug dependents. What this says, if you're on any type of maintenance drug, you have to go to see a certified licensed counselor. Go to the counselor, get the same thing that they do in schools every day for kids that miss school for dental or doctor's appointments. They go in, they see the doctor has a printout, they put their stamp on it, they send it back to the school with the child shows it, and it's all excused. All this says is that because the counseling is already mandated by the federal law, by federal regulations and laws. However, the follow-up of having the doctors actually find out whether you went to counseling is not. Because what happens now is you go to the doctor for your prescription, and the doctor says, did you go to counseling? Oh, yeah, I did. Check. Here's your prescription. There's no determination if you actually went there or not. All this does, the doctor, you get the same or similar sheet of paper printed out by the doctor's office. They stamp it and their signs or whatever. You take it to the doctor. He says, did you go to counseling? You show him the paper. He staples it, puts it on your file, gives you your prescription. And then it's not on here right now, but the revised one also says you can't go to any doctor for a maintenance drug unless you have that. So if you go to your doctor and he says, no, we didn't go, you can't go to the doctor down the street and say, well, and you're a new guy, so I'll give it to you. You can't go to any doctor without that.
I have a question. My nephew runs a methadone treatment center, and that anyone who is participating, they come there every single day, and they have the counselors.
Yes.
So I wasn't sure how it would work.
That would be fine, because the counseling is done when they get their medication. That's true. But there are private physicians out there that give out Suboxone and a couple others, which I can't, but anyway, to give them out. And they are required to find out if the individuals went to counseling. However, the only thing is asked by the doctor or the nurse or, I don't know, someone else, did you go to counseling? Yes. Here's your prescription. All this does is say, look, here's proof I went to counseling. That's all it does.
So, yeah, I'm looking over this, because you already, when I first saw this, when we got in our email, I thought that it was already required, so what are we doing different? So what you're saying is this bill, and I was looking at the language, but this bill would require, so let's say I have an operation, and it's something chronic though, and I get my initial prescription, and I'm coming back to the doctor to get prescribed more medication?
No.
Okay.
That's not what this is. This is if you're on a maintenance drug to keep you off opioids or to keep you off any other type of drug. It's a maintenance,
You said
only for a
maintenance drug.
So no, now if you're going for a second prescription or a third, and when I had my knee replaced, I had, I think, 2 or 3 prescriptions.
Well, there could be a problem with that too,
but that's not what this is.
That's not what you're talking about.
This is about maintenance drugs.
Suboxone, that kind of
Yes,
stuff.
and there's a couple others, but those are the main 2 that come to mind, yeah. And all this requires, doctor's office prints it out, stamps it, or nurse signs or whatever, and you take it with you to the doctor or your next appointment. Look, this is it. He takes it, he staples it in your folder or whatever he has.
And we
That's
mentioned,
all.
we did talk about this yesterday, and we appreciate you bringing these to the opioid task force. And some of this stuff, it is all good practice. I mean, it is the practice that the counselor should adopt. But anytime we pass a bill, it's like, who's gonna enforce it? And that was the question yesterday.
Right.
Because someone's gotta follow up, somebody's gotta enforce it, and then it becomes a fiscal impact.
Would this be the medical board that would, like the
Well,
doctor board?
I'm honestly, for this bill right now, I'm not looking for enforcement. I'm just looking for it to be done. I mean, at the federal level, they require it. And if you're not on your own insurance and you're on whatever, Medicaid or whatever, and you go, they have to check the box off. But the DEA's job is to check to see if that's done. My guess is the DEA doesn't go around the doctor's office and check to see if that's done. So therefore, there's no follow-up on that.
But right now, all that has to be done is a check off of a form, right?
If you're Medicaid.
For Medicaid.
Now, but the federal government does require you to get counseling. Now, how they do that right now in the doctor's office, from what I'm told, for people that I know that go, they're asked a question, did you go to counseling? Oh, yeah, I did.
Yeah.
There you go.
And so
I
some
don't
doctors
even know
may
if they
do
check
more
it
and
off.
some don't. Some
I don't even know
might.
if they check it off, they just ask. All this says, okay, you got the piece of paper, put it in the file. Now, if we want to come up with a way to enforce this or something, that's fine. As I recall, the Graywater bill that what I presented last year that did get passed, the regulations for that haven't even been written yet, and that was a year ago.
Takes a while.
So that's fine. We can put this in. You can figure out or write the regulations later. I'll come down and testify and help out and do that kind of stuff. That's fine. But if we get this in the books and get it moving forward, I think that's a good first step.
Did you want to take position on this?
So I was getting ready to tell you. So we discussed this the other day, and we decided to let the Senior Policy Opioid Group have their say on this before we, as a board, took it forward. And we haven't had the opportunity to do that. I will tell you that last year, we did support it as a board, and you all took it. So I don't want to say it's a carryover, but we wanted to see what that group said first before we
In
before
theory,
we
I
went
like
forward.
it. My one concern would be, do you slow down, now that I'm taking maintenance drug, I'm getting it better, but do you slow down the ability to somebody, it can be hard to seed licensed counselors. I mean,
Okay.
no, tell me.
It can be,
I'm
but
asking.
the fact is, they're supposed to be doing it right now. I'm not
So
requiring
you're
them to
just,
see it.
this bill
is
literally
requiring
asks them to
them.
get a note, basically it says
All-
get a note.
Exactly. All I'm saying is you have to have proof that you went. Right now, according to law, they're supposed to be seeing them. So there's got to be enough out there. There just should be enough time to see them. If there's not, then the federal law should take care of that, which of course it doesn't. But it should be, that's all that's already been set up. All this says is that if you're going there, this is what you need.
How is this going to positively impact the epidemic?
Well,
How's it going to reduce the epidemic?
because if you don't change the mindset of the individual, the maintenance drug does no good. Because once you get off of it, you're gonna go back to what you're doing before. So you gotta change how they're thinking. And how you change that, you send them to counselors and so forth. If they're not going to the counselor, and let's face it, as I know a few personally, if you're a recovering drug addict, you're very good at manipulating other people. You have to be. That's part of your job. So when you go in there and you say, yeah, I went there, I did this, oh, yeah, we talked about this. It sounds very real. You check it off, okay, here's your stuff. This ensures that they will go to the counseling. This ensures that they're getting some of the help that they need. If you don't give them that help, there's going to be no change. They're going to be on that drug either for life or until the time runs out, and I know if there's a time limit on it or not, but you know, once they're off the drug, they'll go back to the opioids, or, I mean, what choice do they have?
So you're basically saying now the doctor is asking the person, did you go? And they're saying yes, check off the box, because it's required by Medicaid to
Okay.
check off this box. So, I mean, I guess you're assuming, and this is my question, it also gets back to almost educating the doctors. I mean, this is not gonna be a law that will force the doctors, it seems to me if you're a good doctor that's prescribing this stuff, you're gonna want some proof that the guy went to counseling. And maybe, I mean.
As I said, I know many people in this boat on the side of getting the maintenance drugs. They don't have any proof.
And so will the doctor
Wait.
then have to maintain these notes? I mean,
Put it in the file, staple it to the file, that's all you have to do. There's no extra work on the doctor, all he does is take it down, okay, here it is, put it in the file, that's all he has to do.
just.
And like I said, I know many people that are
Scan it
on,
into the computer.
right, are on the maintenance drugs, they don't go to the counseling, they have no intention of going, and they don't, they go back, oh, yeah, I went, oh, we talked about this, and we did this, and
Trent.
and oh, it sounds realistic. And sometimes it's not the doctor, it's the nurse or the PA or whoever's there who
Right, yeah.
does that thing.
Ed, you wanted to weigh in?
At the end of the day, we gotta do something, because it's out of control. We all know that, we all recognize that. My biggest concern is not producing more laws that we will be forced to enforce. And there are laws now that need to continue to be enforced. Like, Delegate Krebs, you were talking about the doctors. You know, my family's a bunch of doctors. It is their responsibility by law to ensure that they are doing what they're supposed to be doing in accordance with the law, and not just handing out additional prescription. I understand the anecdotal comments that are made, but, you know, you don't ban the dogs, you enforce the leash law. You know, we got to enforce the things that we already have on the books. Just bear with me. And I think that's where we need to focus, education. We've talked about that, you know, as opposed to creating another law. But I will share, if this is something that will minimize, curtail, or just save one life, then it's worth going after. I just don't know if it is. I think it's more important to enforce the things that we have in place right now than going after
All right,
anything
so
else. But
this
Trent,
DEA's
hold on.
job to enforce what's in place right now, so how are we gonna get them to do that?
Trent, you wanted to,
Yeah, essentially, Ed said a lot of what I was going to say. I like to say I will not, but I know I have done so in the past. I am very philosophically opposed to laws that we pass that have no way of being enforced that are passed to make suggestions. I think we should have something that we can do in the scope of government that said a really strong suggestion. If you don't do it, then we'll make a law. But I think it's wrong. You breed disrespect for the law and you make it selectively enforceable. So, good idea or not, that's my thought of it.
Haven, you had,
At the task force yesterday, this came up, what happened?
It came up last year as well. Basically, I think it's the same comments. Doctors are supposed to do this now. They're supposed to check a box. Now, I think we have a lot of good doctors, and if they're just checking the box and believing the person, maybe they should not. And maybe you should bring that to their attention, doctor, that, hey, this guy needs some proof. He needs a note or whatever. But I think we're dealing, I can tell you exactly who's going to come out against this is the doctor, the med guy. Because it is one more thing for them to have a note from somebody. And it's going to be in law. And again, if you're not going to enforce it or follow up on it, it is required by Medicaid right now. So, I mean, whether the guy's checking the box and believing the person or not, I think that you're basically dismissing the integrity of the doctor, and the doctor maybe should ask for a note or a sign-off. If I'm a good doctor and I think the guy's pulling my chain, I'm going to ask him for a note.
And if not, they should lose their license or be arrested because they're causing.
Well, if you ever
bad
catch them,
effects.
I mean, that's, of course, you could have a situation where counselors start just handing out notes too, although, I mean, I would hope not, but, I mean, I don't know, I find it, I'd like to, are we gonna get additional comments from the?
yeah, we probably will, and I think Mako is going to take up.
Well, look, I mean, because this is not a county bill.
This is statewide.
Right. This would be a state.
We could have some
Yeah.
disagreement and still one of us could decide to put it in or something, and we have to think about it.
And I just,
Yeah,
And to be honest, I after we talked about this in the group yesterday, I was, Sue from the health department and I and Mike are gonna get together.
Okay.
And try to work at the wording of this to make it a little, I guess, more palatable to other people and so forth, and maybe look at how it could be enforced and not enforced.
I mean, I don't think it's a terrible idea, but.
Because, you know, like at the federal level, it requires this, it's not enforced.
Yeah.
And it's out there. If there is a way to do this, I don't have the way, I don't know who's gonna go around and check the folders of the patients, I don't know. But, you know, something, I just think if this went forward with this, then we come up with a way to enforce it while we're writing the legislation for it.
So this is one, I'm sorry, Eric, you,
I know we need to do something, but I don't want us to waste our resources chasing down something that's not gonna have a legitimate impact. On the flip side of this, what if someone says, well, screw it, I don't want the counseling, I'll go to the street? And that's gonna happen potentially with this bill.
so you sort of,
Well, I can say, you
sort
can
of
say
take a
that
left
for
at the
any,
checks and balances and, yeah.
you can say that for any drug that's prescribed, you can go to the street and pick it up. I mean, you can go anywhere and get whatever you're.
Well, I mean, look, we have
So
some.
that's a poor reason not to.
I'm just wondering what legitimate impact it will have.
Well, let me say this, and I'm not trying to tell you what you don't already know, but there's going to be a myriad of opioid, drug bills, thoughts, ideas, all of that. And I think what Mako is attempting to do is to try to get all of those together and get the right bill with some of these things inside of it so that we can get some common ground, or else you all are going to be, there's going to be, 1,000 opioid
There could be
bills
some specific.
on January the 10th.
There could be some specific things, and you're gonna sit down with, I think that's great. I mean, there could be some specific things that Mako can bring, but also then you can get together with MedCon. You get
Right.
together with, I mean, that way you could, that's the best way to move something along, where the doctor's like, yeah, we actually could do this.
Okay.
Because otherwise you end up with not that I don't ever mind putting a bill that's gonna get killed, I do it every year. But, I do a few of those every year. But I think, it is true that nobody doesn't care about this. I think everybody wants to do what we can do, and, so maybe we can figure out.
Okay,
Something.
Right,
in the
and
interim.
If there's other bills that are similar to
Similar,
this,
we can
put
just-
Right.
together.
In the interim, we're going to let Dennis work with Sue out at the health department, and Mike's going to be involved in those. And if we get some additional language that makes it a little easier, then we'll certainly get back to you
and
on
listen,
that.
I mentioned this yesterday. I'm on the health committee, I'm on the task force for the opioids. This has been our #1 issue for the last 3 or 4 years, ever since the governor's been in. We
Right.
had 50 bills last year on this, and we had 60 the year before.
Yeah.
We passed 2 major pieces of legislation and about 5 smaller pieces of legislation. One has to do with prescribing, which we'll talk about next. We literally spent 2 years working with the governor's office and came up with 2 very big pieces of legislation. One is the HOPE Act, and we vetted this with all the players. And right now, what we're trying to do is implement the HOPE Act. So we've been doing this. I don't expect a huge amount of bills this year because we've had so many the last 2 years. And we whittled all of these ideas, you know, the 50 and the 60 ideas, all of these things. And there's something called best practices, and there's something that we put in law. And right now, we've got so many things going on, and our task force has a list of all these things. It's almost impossible. There's a million things you can do, but the question is, where do you put your resources? And we've tried to pick the top things, and even within our county, you sit on the committee, we've tried to pick where do we put our efforts, because there's only so many people and so much money to do this. So I think this is a best practice. It's required by Medicaid. I think that the best way to go about this is to talk to the Medical Association, and they have, you know, their board can say this is a best practice. We recommend that doctors do this. And then it is voluntary, but doctors, for the most part, want to do the right thing. And if they think it's being abused, maybe there's a way without legislating it and having to follow up on it to make it into a practice that doctors do.
But doctors typically want to do best practice for nothing. Most of them want to, almost all of them want to do the right thing because they want to do the right thing, but also, you know, if you ever get sued, you want to point to the fact that you get best practice. So I mean, I think that's
right.
So sometimes when we talk about bills too, we're not saying like we don't want to do the bill because we don't like the idea. It may be that there may be a better way to do it.
Right. Okay.
I think
All right. Well, we'll
it.
get more on that.
All right.
Keep in mind, a lot of these bills coming up are those little gaps between the bill that comes up here and there, or the time that addict falls between those cracks. And I think Dennis is really trying to tighten those gaps up so you don't have the time frame when the person goes back to their old habits.
That's all part of the HOPE Act.
That's what most of these are about. So even if you don't take them up here, at least you have an idea of where the gaps are. So if an opportunity does come up, you see where.
And you should know, Carroll County, I believe, is on the forefront of all this. We've had the governor's people out to our last several meetings. We're ahead of the game on, you know, the peer specialists, going out right to the scene of whatever's happening and talking to people, getting them right into Access Carroll for detox 7 days a week, which is huge.
Which is 24/7 now.
These are huge things in 1 year that we've done. So a lot of these gaps are being filled, and doesn't happen overnight, but I think we made, a year ago, this time to now is huge, and we're still trying to implement these things.
And, however, we have to continue to say, we still don't have it right.
No, we're still.
And we still have to strive to minimize the best we can. I mean, we're doing a lot of things, but we're not at success. And so I do applaud, you know, Commissioner Frazier, all the work he's trying to do in this, because it's still the evil that we gotta address.
And no one in this room doesn't know people that have been impacted by it.
Correct. Exactly. Every person in here. So with that said, the third one, Commissioner Frazier.
Okay, the next one I have is opioids. Right now it says 6-day supply, but after talking to the to the senior opioid group yesterday, Carroll Hospital Center representative said that changed after 6 days to a 3-day supply. They said their emergency department only gets 3 days out. Everyone affiliated with them only gets 3 days out. Now, that's what they do. They don't have any control over any physicians anywhere else. But they said that is the best practice, and if we change it to 3, they'd be behind it 100%. So I'm looking at this. Now, what this says is that, which one is it? Right here. Limit to let's go from 6 to 3-day supply unless it is being prescribed to treat a substance-related disorder, pain associated with cancer diagnosis, end-of-life hospice, palliative care services, or instances where, in the professional opinion of the healthcare provider, the opioid is required to treat a patient's acute medical condition or chronic pain, and there is no non-opioid alternative to effectively treat the patient. So anything that can't be managed by some other pain medication and you need opioids, then you use opioids. I'm not trying to put people in pain, but if there is something else that can be used, use something else.
So this is one of the ones where it's going to run in conflict with state legislation which just passed. I mean, because we tried to put limits in before. What they ended up, it started out with the governor had a bill, I think we all co-sponsored, that was going to do 7 days.
Right, and that was my original one was 6.
Right. But then they took that out because they put the law as the lowest effective dose. which typically is 3
Right.
days, or
Well-
sometimes 6.
But, okay, but what you have, because I do have a copy in my hand, because I was asked
Yeah.
yesterday. if
I brought
actually-
you a copy.
If I actually even read it, but I had read it before. But what this says, it recommends, it's a recommendation. It doesn't say you have to do anything. And it basically says, and I don't want to read the whole thing, but basically says, in the doctor's best opinion, use the least amount of opioids that you possibly can, and
That's not what it says. It says CDC recommendations, doesn't say doctor's best opinion.
it said, on a treatment for pain in the healthcare provider based on the clinical judgment of the healthcare provider shall prescribe the lowest effective dose of an opioid and a quantity that is no greater than a quantity needed for the expected duration of pain severe enough to require an opioid that is controlled, dangerous substance, less an opioid prescribed to treat. And actually, the things what it says right here is what I have right here. So it is actually the doctor's opinion of what they can prescribe, because that's exactly what it says in the bill.
So this is where I was with you in spirit of the last one, but on this one, my concern is you might substitute the legislative mandate for the doctor's ability to decide in their judgment. And I know some doctors have been bad about this, but I think in the medical community now at large, there's clearly a belief, as you talked about the hospital center, there's clearly a belief that we don't want to be giving these out for more than 2 or 3 days. In fact, most doctors I talk to now are like, if I can get away with not prescribing it at all, I will. So I worry about putting sort of an arbitrary standard in the law. It's sort of like in judicial proceedings, we deal with stuff a lot where people want mandatory minimum sentences for things. And sometimes I think it's good to have mandatory minimums, but sometimes you want to have the judge be able to make the determination. I feel like it's kind of the same thing with the doctor.
The 6 day, it was originally 6 days, it's not arbitrary. The 6 days because all studies have shown that an adult can become addicted to opioids within 7 days. So why give them 7 days? Now, if you're not an adult, so if you're under 21, it's going to be less than 7 days. The only reason I went with the 3 days is because after going to the group yesterday, the Carroll Hospital Center representative said that's what they do, 3 days. They'd be supported if it was 3 days. So it wasn't arbitrary. It's not something I pulled out of the air.
When I say arbitrary, I don't mean that you did that. I just mean anything. I'm saying it's not, there's no room for any sort of maneuvering by a medical professional.
Well, be honest with you, I don't think it should be.
Okay,
But that's
it's not
my
just,
opinion.
I mean, again, this is a bill that we passed 2 years ago, and we debated it. The governor's bill was 7 days. We met with all the players, everybody, doctors who are treating people with chronic pain, older people, people with hospice care. So it came out with that it should be prescribed based on an evidence-based clinical guideline prescribing controlled dangerous substance, which is the CDS guidelines, which are very strict. Most CDS guidelines are 3 days. So we came up with this and said, the healthcare service delivery setting for the patient, the type of healthcare service is required, because we do have people that have pain, and these people that you move them off of this medication, and if they can't get the pain medication, they're going to the street and they're buying heroin. So we've got to realize the real world, and for us, and the reality is, I'm on the committee. You asked one of us to put this bill in. Any of us. We go in front of my committee and they're going to say, well, Delegate Krebs, Delegate Miller, we just passed a bill last year and we debated this ad nauseum with everybody involved. Why don't you like it? And then we're going to bring Commissioner Frazier in. They're going to say, well, what's your backing? We will look foolish, and that's what you need to understand. We spent a tremendous amount of time on this bill.
Fine, we can move on.
I mean, you got to understand our point of view with, we're still.
But the bill you have is a recommendation, that's my thing. And all the same exemptions that are in here, the exact same ones. So if a doctor says, okay, you know what, we need opioids for this particular person for whatever reason, you can give them opioids. You don't have to switch anything else. That is at the doctor's discretion, the same as it is here, the same as it is there. It's in there.
But once it's in law, well.
Okay,
Just move on.
we're gonna move.
I got one quick question.
Okay.
Because, Doug Krebs, you mentioned emergency room. Can this be packaged with an existing law where it's 3 days, prescribed drugs from an emergency room situation?
Well, this is existing law for everybody. Emergency room in Carroll County and Lifebridge, they've made a policy decision for their hospitals, 3-day allotted free in the emergency room. So no one's leaving the emergency room with more than 3 days. So that was a policy decision based on best practices at our hospital system.
So that's a policy. You said there's a law that's in place recognizing 7 days.
No.
They took that out.
They took that out.
We basically said.
I apologize, I thought it was.
No.
That was the proposal of the governor.
Okay.
So good practice right now this
Okay.
would be something that we want to continue.
Because what happened with the
Okay,
7 days,
got it.
and as Leslie
Okay.
said yesterday, I'm sorry,
Apologize.
Ms. Simmons from the hospital,
Yeah.
if you put a number like 7 days or 6 days, and everybody's
Right.
gonna think that's the new norm.
Right.
Well, right now, they're down to 3, but there is possibly a doctor somewhere else might need to do
Right.
4 or 5. So we don't want to raise it up.
Okay.
And that's when Dennis said, I'll make it 3. Well, 3 doesn't give them any flexibility either. And keep in mind, these are medical professionals, and there's things that have been done bad in the past, but this just took effect in 2017. I think it is definitely making a difference on prescribing practices. I know that the MedChi is doing a lot of informational, and the federal government doing a lot of informational things with doctors so that they change their prescribing practices, and I think that they are. I'm not saying it's perfect, but I think that a lot of attention has been brought to this.
I appreciate the clarification.
Okay, based on that information, we're going to move to the last one, I believe. Is that correct, Commissioner Frazier?
Last one for me.
Which is the
I could do the other ones too, if you
post-detoxification
want me to,
counseling.
because I'm going so well here.
We appreciate your passion on this.
Yeah.
Believe me, we share it. I share it. It's just that how
Yes.
do we get to the
Right,
same end
okay.
goal?
Okay, so,
So, next one is the post-detoxification counseling. What this basically says, if you get out of rehab on Tuesday, Wednesday, you start your counseling. Let's not have a week to 10 days in between where you go back to the same environment where you were abusing the drugs before and you get a relapse. Let's have the support system in place. One of the objections that was brought up yesterday at the group is that they don't know when people are getting out of the counseling or out of their rehab. But the fact is, if you're on private insurance, you do know, because private insurance goes 7 days, 14, 21, to 28. So you have a good idea. So if you're 14 and you're doing very well, probably you're getting out of 21. That's the time to set this up. You've got a whole week to set it up and go forward with it. If you can't do it on the public assistance, however that's worked out, because you're not sure what day is going to get out because they don't have to go by that particular thing, then you know what, you can't do it. But if you can do it, let's get the group that we can work with. You can do it with this. And if you know when they're getting out, get ahead of it, call the counselors, get it going. Because, number one, there must be enough counselors, because if you have the counselor in 10 days, why don't you have them in 1 day?
Can I ask a question? Because I was looking at the model language. So you're saying they can't, what happens if there's not availability? They can't be released from rehab?
Is that what I'm saying?
No, I'm asking what would happen if you can't, I'm trying to figure out how this is going to work.
But yes, that is what I'm saying.
But what if
Well,
your insurance won't
but-
pay for you to go
Well,
beyond 21 days?
Well, if your insurance, then they know when you're getting out. Like, it's one of those points is what it hits. They have a week to get everything set up. If, when you got out, your counseling started within a week, why couldn't they do it just a week earlier? So I don't think that would be a
Well, what
problem.
if this is where I don't know, maybe you can tell me, are you able to get something into a counseling session within 2 or 3 days from when you decide you want to do it?
If they put the stuff out in time, you can get it, because like I said, when they discharge you on Tuesday,
Yeah.
that's like Monday before is when they put the paperwork in and send out, look for all the stuff. That's why it takes
So
that
you're
week.
wanting them, the detox centers, to put the paperwork in enough time?
Yes,
Right.
so that the next day, you're ready to go.
but
Let's say hypothetically they start doing this, I just really want to understand it, because I should have been at the meeting yesterday. I was on the road. We do this, 7 days from now, you're gonna be getting out. What happens if you can't get an appointment for 7 days from now, or 8 days from now?
which is where the question came.
Well-
How are you going to get it in 2 or 3 days? In most cases, I'm not sure you're going to be able to.
So he's saying
Strictly because of
mandated
lack
to
of
be-
resources, that's the problem.
I don't look at it that there's a lack of resources, because if you can get it in 7 days from the
Well,
day
can
you
you,
get out.
can you get it in 7 days, is my question.
I would say between 7 and 10 days, everyone has it set up. I don't know anyone has gotten out of rehab that hasn't had it set up within 7 to 10 days.
What about in
Yes, I
like-
know quite a few people have gotten out of rehab.
No, I appreciate that, and I know some too, but maybe, what about in Baltimore City, or eastern Baltimore County, or Silver Spring, like heavily populated areas? I know we're care about Carroll, but I'm just trying to think, I'm thinking about it from a state law
Right, okay.
perspective.
Which is where it's going to be. It's going
Well,
to
I'm
be a
not
state.
trying to,
Right,
I'm not trying to be difficult.
I got you, I
Yeah.
understand, and I don't have the information on that in
Okay.
Baltimore City.
All right.
Might take 11 days, no.
All right, so could I suggest perhaps again that this is another one that we tweak the language on? I have every intent of being able to present this to the folks at Mako as we try to delve into the details of that blanket bill that we're going to bring, we being Mako. And maybe we could put this as a part of that too.
And
If
I
we
would
can't
suggest
get-
making sure before you take it up there, you talk to the providers and say, do you do this now? Because I keep talking about the word communication. Sometimes you talk among ourselves, the providers will tell you the reality in the field with doing
Right.
this stuff. So make sure you include providers
Okay,
in that conversation. We had 2 providers there yesterday. So do that, because among us, it might sound great, and then the provider will
Okay.
tell you the real world and what's going on. And when
Okay.
we get in front of the committee and with our little bill, and we present this, all those people are gonna be there, and they're
Right.
gonna bring their perspective. I'd rather get their perspective before we bring a bill in front of them.
okay.
And keep in mind, all these bills, anybody is welcome to put them in. I mean,
Right.
Just because we
Right.
ask the questions.
Can I highlight something? We're already the week before the holidays. There's only 2 weeks, or a week and a half, what is it, 2 weeks or a week and a half in January before session starts?
It's a week and a half, it's the 9th, right?
We have bill file deadlines that come up pretty quickly. They only give us so many days.
Right,
And the point I'm getting to is bill drafting. If we went today and said we need this bill, there's a good chance we're not gonna get it till February. So the waiting, I don't want anybody to be disillusioned by the fact that you guys wait and you say, hey, we like this bill, we want it to move forward. Because we did this late this year because of the elections, there's a very real possibility that it's gonna be a late filed bill, or
Right.
we're not gonna get it back from.
well, that's why I'm suggesting, Warren, that perhaps we attack it from the MACO,
Okay.
at the MACO level. and
I just
get
wanted
it
to have
in.
that understanding, so nobody's upset when there's
Okay.
not a bill produced, because
Or if it takes longer than we.
the
Right.
timeline doesn't.
Right.
You're dealing with an unknown here, and that's the bill drafter.
Right,
How long does it take them to get it through the process?
okay.
And all of these ideas too, we can do them in Carroll County through our work group. I mean, sometimes an idea here isn't acceptable.
Right.
It's a whole different
Which
world.
it is maybe the final point here. We don't want to overshadow the fact that Commissioner Frazier and certainly Commissioner Boucher have a passion for trying to bring some of these things to the table. So if for no other reason, it puts something in your head that perhaps we could do at a local level, and,
When I
just
say
like,
do it, I'm not talking
gosh,
about
just
law.
like the Access Carroll, Susan, that 24/7 treatment now, which is sort of unheard of across the state. So, okay, all right. Okay, we're gonna move on to outside group submittals that they presented in front of us, and we approved them to be presented to you folks. The first one is one that didn't make it too far last year, and that was the video lottery. I know you tried. And that, just a reminder, and maybe for the new folks, the Elks organization came to me originally with this idea and wanted the opportunity. And Haven, you and I had some lengthy conversations about this as well. And those folks were actually down there and testified.
Statewide bill.
On the statewide bill. But they wanted the opportunity to have these lottery machines in their fraternal organizations as well, identifying the fact that they give back to the veterans groups and what have you. They don't take the money and go out and buy more shrimp. They give them to the veterans groups. So I don't know why it didn't make it last year. I can't imagine, well, yeah, I can, because I know how Annapolis works, but
Well, they
anyway.
didn't want, what happened was, I think we all supported the local bill or the statewide bill. We supported both bills. What tends to happen is when they don't want to do it county by county. At least the policymakers that, and of course, I guess I'm talking about your committee. You may know better on the House side. On the Senate side, they took a dim view of county by county being, bills like this. They said, we want a statewide bill, but then I thought maybe the House didn't want the statewide bill, or maybe I had that backwards, but they don't.
Did it get through the House, Haven?
The statewide bill?
The statewide bill, I don't think it did.
Okay, because it didn't get.
No, it didn't get through either house.
It didn't get to you at all, did it?
There was a statewide bill in the
Okay.
Senate, but
Yeah,
it didn't get a vote.
Okay.
It was a Senate cross-file.
Okay.
None of them reared their heads.
Okay.
Some
Well,
of it was, yeah.
I don't know what the statewide Elks organization plans for this coming year, but I do know that they were, I got word that they probably were gonna attempt to do this again.
Well, I don't
I'm
mind
an
putting
elk, so I'm sure I'll hear from them.
Senator Young sponsored.
So
That's
you've
what
got,
Bill has.
okay, so you've got the secret handshake there.
But I don't mind, we obviously would need to have a vote of our delegation, but from my perspective, I don't mind doing a local bill too. We just
Okay.
have to see what.
All right, so again, this is something.
Did you guys vote on this again?
Yes, we're in support of this for our local Elks
Listen, we've been
Lodge,
in
and
support of-
Moose the same way, same group. well,
And they're not
different
gonna-
group, but same.
They're not going to delineate the
Right.
groups. They're
It'll
going to
be
say.
fraternals,
fraternal.
yeah. I know, Moose and elk are different. I got it. Moose and squirrel. I got it, Hunter, okay? Okay. Our local liquor board came to us with 3 proposals, and in lieu of us standing here attempting to try to mumble our way through these, we are honored today to have the Honorable David Brawning, our chairman of the liquor board. I mean, I'm not talking you up any more than that. Why don't you come up here to one of the seats, Dave, and talk us through these 3, please, for this group. And again, keep in mind here that he presented these to us the other day, and we were in unanimous, we unanimously approved them to be presented to you. Joining Dave is Keith Benford, who is he's our Chief Inspector. Well, I was going to give you another title, but maybe I was going to promote you. I don't know. So anyway, Dave, floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wance, members of the legislature, county commissioners, ladies and gentlemen, guests. We have before you, I assume you all have copies of our proposed requests.
We do.
Some here. The first request is in regards to a petition signed by 10 people who say that they think that this business is warranted. Now, also within the application, and they can be 10 residents made up. You may have a restaurant in Westminster and they might reside in Finksburg or Hempstead or something.
No, they have to
They
live-
must be within the district, but the mailing address can be, as in this case, can be a resident of Finksburg or Westminster. Depending, Keith, depending on where you live, depending on where you live. Just forget that, but that's possible. Also, a requirement is that they must have 15 tax-paying, real estate tax-paying residents of the district in which the applicant resides, to certify that they are fit and responsible licensees. It's kind of redundant where you could walk down the street, Main Street of Westminster, and say, if you sign this petition, they don't know you from Adam. But the second requirement for those 15 or more must be residents of that district, must be taxpayers, pay real estate taxes. They must have been a resident for
2 years.
2 years. What this bill does is ask that we just delete the 10 signatures of those people who say, yeah, we think you ought to have it.
And just
Make it
as
15?
the one person in here that serves with alcoholic beverage issues, this is a very easy fix. Put the bill in. I don't think you're going to have any problems on the committee with it. So I can't make a promise, but I can tell you that this is pretty typical legislation that passes every year. Counties opt in, opt out.
So have other counties already opted out of this?
This, I'm pretty sure this arose out of Baltimore City. And it's something that probably was, at some point, they just rewrote the entire Article 2B, all the liquor laws. And we're finding in Howard County, the way they rewrote it, there are things that never applied in Howard County that now apply. And I don't know if that happened in Carroll, or if this has always been the way of the law in Carroll, but this is not an uncommon request. It should be very easy to deal with.
We find, as Delegate Miller pointed out, there are many, in the state alcoholic beverages laws, there are many, many instances which counties opt out of many of those regulations. And this actually is one. So it's fair.
Yep, check that one off.
Fairly clear.
Yep.
Okay.
Number 2.
Number 2, is this the, I don't have a.
Class D. the
Class D license.
Class D license. In Carroll County, we have 5 Class D licenses. Class D, according to state law, and here again, you can opt out. According to state law, a Class D license holder must be able to offer on-premises and off-premises sales. We have 5 Class D licenses in Carroll County, of which only 3 of them actually offer off-sale premises, and basically what they're doing when they say that is if you buy a bottle of wine, for instance, in the Lumens and Lace Tea Room, and you don't finish the bottle, you take it with you. And you may purchase another bottle. What we're asking for in this bill to give our local license commission the authority to issue those if we feel it's warranted, and the existing 5 will be grandfathered in.
So what you're saying is liquor board, it's case-by-case basis?
Right.
And if I come to you and it looks like I'm not gonna be a legitimate on-premise, I'm just getting the license to push a lot of stuff off-premise, you can say no?
We can say no. There's a $250 license for a Class D. Their competitors, example he just gave was either $1,000 or $1,500.
You good with that, Warren? You're the expert
I
here.
don't see any problems with it.
Okay. All right,
Okay,
number 3.
the third one is a catering license at which the caterer is required to provide food if they provide alcoholic beverages. Many instances where you get involved with fraternal organizations, charities and so on and so forth, there's food there. This bill will allow somebody else to cater the alcohol.
What happens if there's not food there?
It must be food.
So it would allow somebody to cater the alcohol because but there would only if they
Food has to be available.
has to be available, and then a caterer can come in and do the alcohol
Right.
because the people who provide the
Joe
food
Blow
can't
can
provide it.
cater the food, and Sam Smith can cater the alcohol.
So would this apply to like an Elks Club or somebody that already has alcohol and they use their alcohol and then bring in a caterer, like in reverse?
No, I don't think it would apply to
They
any
could probably go
fraternal
do what they wanted
organizations.
to
It
do.
could apply to a fire company.
Or a fire company?
Could apply
Yeah,
to a
that's
Lions
kind
Club,
of
Bull
that's
Riders.
probably a better example, because
Okay.
the fire company,
But if they have a tap there and they want to use their tap and then they want to bring in their own food, it could be in reverse that they pay them for the
it could,
alcohol.
yeah, you could, yeah.
But you can already do that though.
Food,
Okay.
the main point,
Could be.
food has to be
If you rent the
available.
facility out, it could be.
Food has to be
The fire
available.
company doesn't have.
Where
to
does it
serve
say
food.
that?
It's current law, Class B license.
It's already,
Right.
it's in other,
All this would be saying is the license holder providing alcohol does not have to also provide food at that event.
That's right.
The event has to have food, but.
Correct.
Right.
Food already there.
Right.
Correct.
For example, right now,
That's
the
being
cookies have been
deleted.
provided, so.
that's the part being deleted.
And if there was,
So it
if-
doesn't talk about
boy, we're,
yeah. food being
So if
there
there-
anywhere else. So it may be in another part of the.
is that a motion? That's a motion, I'm saying.
If you go to an event and there's already food there, caterers aren't bringing food.
No, I
There's
understand
food
what the
there.
bill
I know.
does. I
You're
don't
right.
think in this
I don't
that
see-
it says that's it, but it
Okay, so-
probably is someplace else.
Warren, do you get this, or do you need, because
No, I
I want to
get-
make sure that you get it.
I get it, this is a little unusual, so I can't tell you, I can't look in my 8-ball and tell you that, because this is like the first time I've seen this.
But don't other counties already do this?
They may or they may not, but we haven't had legislation like this in my memory and my committee, so I can't.
Do you, I mean,
I don't think there's
any
anything
philosophical
No.
issues
I'm just
with-
saying, I don't, like, the first 2 were cut and dry.
Might be the first
We
time
do
the
those
committee's
things.
heard this in a long,
Yeah,
long time.
yeah.
Yeah.
Makes sense to me though.
Okay.
Yeah, there's going to be food.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
I'm just curious, who's asking for this?
Board of License Commissioners for Carroll
The
County.
people that regulate the alcohol.
Yeah. Yeah.
There isn't like an interest group behind that?
Incidentally, just for y'all's information, the commissioners are aware of this. All these changes were advertised 60 days ago, roughly. A public hearing was held in this room on 30 days written notice. There was no opposition to any one of these 3. Another public hearing notice was sent out that the board would vote on those within 30 days, which we did. then we present it to the commission. So the public has had 2 times.
They've had ample opportunity to weigh in.
They have been updating their handbook and all the laws and
Right.
regulations to bring them back into present day standards, so that's all part of this.
So, any questions on any of those 3? And certainly, if you want more detail, we've got the people to provide that for you, Warren. We'll see if you get hooked up down there.
Just have somebody there on liquor bill day, and we'll
Okay.
be all good to go.
Okay.
Or we'll go to Annapolis. It's usually a Monday in February.
Late February, right? Yeah.
House and the Senate doing the same day.
Okay.
Bring food with you. No.
Who's gonna have the alcohol?
Okay. And if they, certainly we'll tag team that. That's another instance where Mike will probably be involved with that as well.
He also practices shuttle diplomacy, going back and forth across the street.
That's correct.
But
Yeah.
my other piece of advice on that day is less is more. The less noticeable you are,
Got
the
it.
more likely you are to get a bill.
Yeah, I've kind of learned that
If
in
you
the
sit
last.
for a long time, or you,
Yeah, I've learned that over the.
Or if you give an oddly specific example.
I just want to interject one thing here. The
Thank you.
The liquor board's done a great job here of educating
Yes, and we
people,
appreciate
not playing
that.
gotcha with it.
Yes.
Right.
And they have really reduced the number of offenses they have.
We're probably number 1 in the state on that one, too.
Yeah, the.
Training seminar?
Or the.
Training seminar.
Training session, the room was packed, and they were training everybody from servers on what the laws are and what to expect. So they are way ahead of.
And listen, I want to thank you personally, because you know, at these meetings, before you came, I was very critical of the liquor board, because they were a gotcha liquor board. And they weren't out there educating people. And to me, it should be, gosh, if we have perfect regulation and you're communicating with them, hopefully we won't have any of these violations. So I appreciate the inspector and the spirit of what you're regulating and trying to educate and not have these issues come up instead of just, but I definitely a sea change of, in your newsletter, you send stuff out, and if there's any changes, and the communication has been great, and the liquor board is a shining star with David at the helm, so we appreciate that.
You shared with us the compliance percentages.
Yeah, I
from-
was just gonna mention that.
Please.
Our compliance percentage in the past 3 years has went from 84% compliance to 98%.
Oh, wow.
That's awesome.
Probably number 1 in the state.
We, for several months now, have lacked any youthful alcohol violations.
But when you said spirit, was that pun intended, or?
I don't think like that, you do.
Okay, thank you
Miller,
both.
the last bill that this board presented, Senator Kittleman told me at the hearing, don't say much.
I guess that hasn't
we
changed.
like getting the bill.
There you go, Warren, right up your alley.
If I ever saw anything that went through Richmond, it went through Richmond. Thank you all very much. We
Thank you.
appreciate your help.
Thanks, Dave. The last thing's not in your book, or it might not be the last thing, it's the last thing that I have. I had an interesting phone call, and I just wanted to put a bug in your ear in case you get a similar phone call. I had a gentleman reach out to me who's an election judge. And, they do a yeoman's job, and I've seen some of them above and beyond, because, let's be clear, there are some crazy people at election sites every now and then.
I've heard that.
Yeah. Candidates? I've actually, including candidates, so there's that. Wow. Anyway, since I'm in the lame duck mode, I can say that now. So, yeah, there is. But he had an interesting proposal to me, one in which I vetted with our county attorney, and he attempted to get me through the right place here with it. But when they get their check for doing their duty, it's declared income. So they make what? $150, and they have to declare it, so the taxes come out. So it's sort of looked upon as a slap in the face, and all of you know how difficult it is to find folks that want to work the polls. Now, when I go to the polls, it's interesting to me, because there are plenty of people out there that want to stuff something in your face to tell you who to vote for. But yet we can't find people that want to make a little money to work inside. So it's
And it is
interesting.
very little money, unfortunately.
So he said, if there was any way whatsoever that we could get that to be exempt from taxes. He wanted to do that. Now, Tim, you and I vetted this to the nth degree, I believe, and found that this is a federal IRS
Well, and the
issue,
thing is, you can exempt them
probably.
from state tax, but the bottom line, even if you just 1099 them, they're gonna owe their own social security and the business
Right.
side. So it is a great idea, but you basically can only affect the state tax part of it. The federal tax, they're gonna have to report it one way or another,
Right.
because it's income to them.
We should talk off, I wonder if there's a way to get.
Now, you could, if it's under $600, they don't have to 1099 them, but by law, you're supposed to report it, so it's honor system.
So I'm merely bringing it up as a bug in your ear for maybe some further thinking on what we could do to assist, and maybe if we would find a way to do that, we could attract more folks that
Yeah.
actually want to work on the inside of the polling place, which I think is very important.
And I'm just thinking out loud, but if we can only affect the state tax part of it, I don't know what the value of that is, but it almost would be better to put it and make the wage look higher to attract people than to give them the break on the back end. You know what I'm saying? One way or another, it's only the state portion of it you're gonna be able to do, I believe. Because
Instead of 150, make it 167, take off $17, you get 150.
you could do that, you could exempt it from state
Well,
tax
I
and
mean,
up
Yeah.
But it's just gonna continue to grow. That's not the solution.
people wanna do it because they love their.
It would be great to find an
voting.
incentive to do what you're saying.
They really do work, well, I mean, they probably work a 15-hour day. on
Yeah, they
Tuesdays.
do.
And then they have to be trained in early voting, so it's,
Yeah.
They probably want a bottle of liquor.
Yeah, so back to the liquor, yeah, so, but anyway, it's just, again, food for thought.
It's school property.
Food for thought, and I wouldn't put it, someone probably will reach out to one of you with the
Yeah, sure.
idea too.
Interesting.
And
But think it through, because you can only affect the state. No matter what we do, if we don't take the money out, you still owe it.
Right,
Just because it's not taken out of your check, and then the person's responsible one way or another.
yeah, okay.
They're gonna get you.
Oh, I know, okay. Final thoughts from my colleagues, anything?
I'll bring up, where's the state on potentially suing the opioid manufacturers and distributors? Is that something that's happening?
I think so. I think Brock Ross did.
Is there a status or?
they've gone after them, it actually took a while for them to join a lawsuit. They've gotten some awards back from some of the loss, like a piece of the money, but I think there's still a lot of ongoing, a lot of that is still ongoing though. I have to get details and get back to you with it.
So the state of Maryland joined the nationwide thing? Because the last I heard, the state of Maryland had not joined it. There's 33 states, state of Maryland's not one of 33.
I don't think we have either.
We haven't joined the
Part of the problem is
We got an
too
award.
busy suing the federal government.
We should find that out. That's
We can get more
legitimate,
details.
more
Because
legitimate.
we're potentially, we'll eventually talk about it, I guess. It's something that we as a board would like
Well,
to
it's
get
similar to
involved
the
with.
tobacco settlement, you would think you want to be part of that. It certainly worked for the tobacco, we're still bringing in a lot of money for the tobacco settlement every year.
Right.
One thing I just wanted to mention, I started off with this, I know when you guys have your deliberations about different issues, things come up how the state impacts you. And one, and I mentioned Ed earlier, is recycling. And I know last year you talked about how China's not taking your recycling anymore and how it costs you more to get rid of it. And we have a state mandate in there that you have to do a certain amount in recycling. And back when we did the mandate, or they did the mandate years ago, recycling, you were bringing in money, and now things have changed. So to the extent those things happen, bring them up through MACO, because we might, depending on again, there's only so much money to go around. If you have to pay to get rid of recycling, that's money that now comes out of you being able to pay for our teachers. So as those things happen, don't just say, oh, it's a state law. If something has changed, bring it back up to us, because it might need to be revisited, because that came to mind last year when you guys were having the debate of how paying to get rid of recycling now. And it's a state, not that we don't want to do it, but there might be, we need to be made aware of those things and how things are affecting you.
And Dennis and I had a conversation earlier today about the fact that we are finding better ways now to use the recycling.
Exactly.
Because it's interesting, 60 Minutes had a thing last Sunday, and they were talking about how none of that plastic bag. Man, I hate to bring this up again, but none of the stuff is really going to China anymore, which is where most of it is going. And the reporter asked the question, where are you sending it now? And they said, well, we're sending it to Korea and North Vietnam. So what are they doing with it?
Well, but you also look at what we're doing in the United States with some of the plastics. I just bought all my patio furniture is recycled plastic. So
Right.
there's good things happening with it as well, but not all of it. So as it affects you, just, keep us in the loop.
Okay.
Speaking of opioid suits. I mean, a number of the counties are suing opioid manufacturers, and I thought you all joined in on that.
We didn't.
We did.
We're bringing it back up. For the record, I've brought it up twice, and it was turned down both times. So I'm batting, what's that, 0?
Yes.
For 2.
.000.
Thank you.
You're back like.
I'll play baseball.
Is
But
the-
in fairness,
Is the point in the right place? Because I don't know.
Hey, you could play for the Orioles.
You're right.
Bring it back.
But you don't quite have enough at bats yet to count, so you gotta keep going.
All right, so third time's a charm, we're hoping. I've asked our county attorney to look into it again. He's actually going to bring a presentation back to us again soon after the holidays, and I think, hopefully, and here's my message to my colleagues, hopefully, the third time is the charm.
And
So-
Haven is right, and you're right, that he has not joined the lawsuit. The Attorney General
Okay.
claims he does not have the resources to join the lawsuit.
Well, he's busy. He's busy.
Very busy.
Right. Okay, any final thoughts
I
from?
have one other thing. As you mentioned, when we started, Kerwin is coming up. Again, it's not just, I've been through this before with Thornton years ago, and I was on the school board at the time. There is a big county component to this. So we want to make sure that, how it affects our county and you for Howard County is big, that's what matters to us. And it's going to be flying, and they're going to see how wonderful everything is. But, we want to make sure, number one, our schools do well, and we do well with a little. And we want to make sure that, there's accountability in there, and that our school system doesn't, just because we're doing well, sometimes you get they give schools, they almost reward people that do poorly instead of rewarding people that do well. So we want to make sure that the reward is there for doing well and not continuing to reward people that have never really achieved. Because when this conversation happened in 1998, and I was a part of it, there was supposed to be all this accountability, and we're going to have all this student achievement. And if you look at some of the student achievement in these counties, it has not, a single thing has changed. And we put $1.2 billion into it back then. So we've got to focus on, you can't just keep throwing money at these things without the accountability in some of these, and it's not about Carroll County, it's about, we represent, the whole state is going to be impacted by this. So throwing money at a jurisdiction that just continues to waste it and still has people that can't read, it just drives me crazy. So make sure that you guys at MACO speak up and tell
Well,
us.
it's interesting, Susan, because at MACO, the discussion has been, well, I don't know how many times I've rolled my eyes, because it's all about, Kerwin is all about what they weren't tasked to do.
Yep.
But we'll get into a debate with my colleagues at the MACO table from the Montgomery counties and the Prince George's counties of the world, and that's when the eye rolling starts.
That's when you realize what we're up against.
So trust me, we're all over that one as well.
And communicate during this whole, and I told the Board of Ed the same thing, because, you guys are crunching the numbers, you got staff to crunch the numbers.
So at the public hearing, the Kerwin public hearing, so Jan Gardner and Laura Price from Talbot spoke. Both, I think, were very clear in their, very strong concerns about the funding formulas.
Was that yesterday or is that today?
No, that was a couple weeks ago.
Well, today, their last meeting?
They're supposed to put the formulas out, yes.
Today's their last
But
meeting.
still haven't seen, and they may not come until something goes to the
Well, I think
Assembly.
didn't they say, Mike, Christmas Eve or something? Originally, they said they were gonna put them out, or?
There have been so many targets.
I know.
I mean, I'm just one point. Years ago, we added all-day kindergarten, and in Carroll County, as you remember, who's been here, we had full-time aides in every one of our kindergarten rooms for decades, and we did really, really well. We then had to go to full-day kindergarten. We had to get rid of our aides and we had to build all these new additions on, and there's been no measurable increase in third grade reading levels since we did that. And so, we've already done some of these things, and everybody wants to do all-day all-day nursery school and then pre-K, and they're going to take them from the hospital. But the question becomes, what happened the last time? Did we see measurable results?
Right.
And so we need to keep asking those questions, because I'm going to tell you, everybody's going to get on board and say, yes, we need to do this, and yes, we need to do that, but we already did it, and we're going to need to learn from what we did. So
Okay.
make sure MACO's asking those questions as well. What did we get out of the last time? How do we make sure this money's being spent, and we're going to get results out of it, not just, hey, to go home and say we got free daycare for people.
Accountability is a novel concept.
It's
Some places,
interesting,
not
isn't
in
it?
our county, but.
Yeah, funding and accountability are the two issues that MACO is focused.
So more to come.
Laser-like on.
I want to thank all of you again for taking time out of your busy schedules. Katie, thank you very much.
My pleasure.
I know it's
Welcome
tough.
aboard.
Yeah.
Pardon?
Welcome aboard.
Thank you so much.
And we look forward to, you know, what you guys bring to the table too, in January, February, March, and April. You know, we all work together here, so look forward to improved communication, and off we shall
I
go.
assume you'll be down for the inauguration.
Yeah, we'll be there. And on behalf of my colleagues, I want to say,
Oh, yeah, do you want, yes,
When's the meeting with the citizens?
I'm sorry,
Whenever
what?
the delegation has it, that's the delegation's meeting.
Yeah, the delegation will be announcing their
We'll have,
meetings.
we're looking in
Yeah,
January.
they're looking
this
into
year.
that, so,
People are sworn in.
right.
Yeah, we had to wait for, everybody has to be sworn in as
Right.
official members.
Technicality.
There's one issue, and then we also actually had to have all the bills so we could
Yep.
have a hearing.
All right, safe travels on behalf of my colleagues. Happy holidays, okay? Happy New Year. I need a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Thank you.